People, I am beyond excited for my next guest. Emily Bissen is a multi-passionate entrepreneur, mama of two beautiful souls who I cannot wait to have a play date with again soon. 100%. My daughter's obsessed with her kids, and a wife of a brilliant scientist. Her mind is never full. She's constantly learning, growing, connecting, and evolving. Her current passions are running, especially on the beach, cooking, and connecting with people, ideas, and honestly, any combination of the two. She is just energized by the idea of being around people and helping them feel like they can be their best selves. She sees her mission in and out of her business as helping people discover and turn up their inner light so they can have the impact that they were born to make in the world. And honestly, is pretty much just an anti-shame activist when you read that mission statement and we think about what the work is on shame resilience. She really is a lifter of all around her. Every time I talk to her, she makes me feel less alone and like I can handle anything. And I'm so excited to share that wonder with all of you as we dive deep into the topic of shame and expansion. The idea of wanting more than you had growing up, or growing beyond yourself and the person that you were, or the world that you were a part of, and the shame that can come from that and the experiences that we go through internally. Emily, welcome. I am just like vibrating with excitement right now. So how are you?
I'm good. Today was a good day.
Yeah. How's the rain up by you? So Emily's up in Washington. I'm in Oregon. So we're, Pacific Northwesters in the deep set of the rain. We're recording this in March. So rain is like no shortage, rain, snow, sleet, hail. So how is the weather today?
It's not bad. It was not, there was no blue sky or sunshine today, but it felt like it was trying to come back out. And
yeah, those
sunny days in the midst of the day are like, it's amazing.
And Everly is obsessed with being outside when it's raining and snowing, which is really hard for me because I hate being wet. Like, I don't love being cold. I don't think anybody loves it, but like, I hate being wet. So the moment the sun is out is like the moment where I just feel like today I'm going to get like the gold star notch in parenting. Because my kid's going to want to go outside and I'm going to be excited. So that's what I feel like for me is the relief with that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I like to start every episode just doing a one-word check-in. Just kind of, I think one of the things that a lot of people we've all struggled with in our life is the connection to our emotional selves. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, what is one word you would just use to describe right now how you're feeling in this moment?
Curious is actually the word that I would use, because there's been a lot of conversations I've had this week that have tapped into like a deeper spiritual side of life that I'm just super excited and curious to explore more of. So curious is the word.
I love that. And was it like these conversations happened and they like hit me like a ton of bricks or a slap in the face, or they were things where you're like, oh, what is this door? I need to go down it, or a mixture of both?
Mixture of both. It was, I scheduled a call with somebody out of curiosity for the work that she does with the Akashic record stuff.
Oh, cool.
I've heard about that a lot, but I didn't really understand what it was. And our 30-minute conversation turned into an hour and 15 minutes and a meditation that like I could feel the energy through my body. And it was the coolest thing. And so we've got another whole conversation coming up in the next couple of weeks because I need to know more.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. When I was thinking about our recording today, I had, I think, kind of two thoughts come up, two emotions. One, I had this incredible sense of peace because you are just somebody that is like, I just picture you when I'm having a hard day, and I picture sometimes, or I'll see your posts on LinkedIn and your beautiful face just like popping up with this smile that's like, I'm here with you, as you just always have that like, yeah, I'm here. Tell me more. Like, it's okay to just lean into whatever it is. So super excited to have a conversation with you because I know the safety I feel exploring something and being curious together. I think the other thing that I was feeling was this sense of relief because I don't experience, my shame's really quiet when I talk to you. And I think probably those two things go hand in hand, but I know there are some people that I'm intentionally having conversations with that my shame is already really loud about before we've even hit record. So I felt a sense of relief at the same time with the other piece.
Well, I feel the same.
Oh, well, thank you. Y'all can't see it, but my face is a little like blushy feeling because whenever somebody says that my go-to with compliments, I don't know how I feel like you take them anytime I say something, I never feel like you're immediately dismissing them. I'm always of that of like, oh, it's okay. Let's talk about you, or like make a joke or something like that. So even when someone was like, no, I feel that way too. I guess maybe that is a place my shame will come up where it's like, no, they're just doing it to be nice. And because it's you, and I know you don't feel the need to blow smoke up my ass, I am like, oh no, that I was saying that just for you. Like that was yours. You don't have to give it back. Like, this is uncomfortable. Leave, like that.
No. I'm giving it back because the work that you and I have done together has transformed my life in more ways than one. So,
well, I'm excited that you and I are the ones having this conversation today. And thinking about this idea of expansion, and we've both gone through this together. We've had these conversations. We both moved from Wisconsin across the country and launched businesses in a place where we had pretty much zero connections while, you were raising two kids at the time. I had a little one come in, I was due with her a couple of months after I like really kind of launched my business. And so while trying to figure out how to parent in a pandemic, all these things, tell me, how did you get to a place of saying, I want, or I need, or I'm called to talk about expansion and what this means and feels like for you?
I think since before, and you know this story, but I think since before the pandemic really hit, I have been on this journey of expansion and really like turning over the rocks and looking at all the aspects of my life and trying to figure out where I'm settling and what more I want out of this life. And it wasn't until I sort of had that space to think about it and really like it came into like really big focus because the way that I felt was like there was an e-brake pulled on the world, and I just everything that I knew totally stopped and felt really weird. It felt really weird. And then getting a chance to take a look at all the pieces of my life and really analyze, is this really what I want? And am I okay with continuing down this path, or is there something more? And I kept getting this feeling like there's more to experience. There's more to do. And a couple of years before that, you and I had done a visualization meditation, and I saw myself here doing this work from my house during the hours my kids are in school. And so that was always in the back of my mind of like, when is that going to happen? How is that going to happen? And I just kept taking one step forward and following those breadcrumbs.
How did you create a sense of safety or like security in yourself to do that? Because I think for so many of us, we have those thoughts, we have those visualizations. I've done that future day fantasy like a million times myself, and I'll still feel that pull sometimes of, but you shouldn't want that much, or that's never going to happen. Or who do you think you are to want that? So how was that there, and you just kind of allowed it to exist and you're like, I'm just going to keep experiencing this? Did you do something to release that? How did you get to that place?
I think at the time it felt so unbelievable that it was just sort of this like nebulous thing that might happen someday, but there was never a clear, like, I'm moving in that direction. It was just sort of following the path of how things were at the time, and trying to see what else was out there. And so I had this thought that I would start a business one day, but I didn't know how that would look. I didn't know what I would do. And it wasn't until I was getting calls from a bunch of different people saying, teach me how to do this, teach me how to do that. And I was like, maybe there is an opportunity. And then surrounding myself with other people who were like, hell yeah, you should go out and do that. And even still, I was like, do I have what it takes to actually make that happen? And then we moved on a whim. I moved away from everything like right after I started the business. And I had to every day look at the proof that I could do it. Like, these are all the people that reached out to me. This is how much money I brought the last company I worked for. These are the places that I know that I can do this work. To sort of pump me up, sort of like my badass list of like, okay. But there were still times that I'm like, who the fuck am I to go out and like teach these people this, what I can do? Because I feel like what I'm doing feels so easy. I'm just pulling the gifts out of the people that I'm working with. And I'm not really doing the work, but it takes somebody who can see them to show the path. And so I'm like, okay, all right, maybe I do have it.
Do you think that that is also, well, I guess even before I ask this question, you use the word more, and I find myself kind of thinking about more in relation to tangible things, more, more money, more like a bigger house. Like there's that part, but there's more that feels deeper. It's like an emotional state or like an internal longing. Yeah. What was the more for you when you're like, is there something more? Can I have more? Can I do more? What does more mean for you?
Like the impact, like what's the impact that I can make in the world? And how can I create a ripple effect with the work that I'm doing that goes beyond me?
And where do you think the shame comes in, or like those limiting thoughts come in as you start to think about that impact?
That I'm still discovering my own, like I'm still on my own journey. And so I think the shame comes in of like, who am I to be the one leading this?
Yeah.
And because nobody, like a lot of the people that I grew up with played it very safe, and they didn't put themselves out there beyond a certain level because it felt scary and it was unpredictable and unknown. And I think the shame comes in where I hear from people that I grew up with, like, well, why can't that be enough? Why can't this be enough? And I think about I don't know if it was a conversation you and I had, or I'm pretty sure it was, where we realized like their limits are not my limits.
Yeah. I remember this conversation.
Yeah. And that was so powerful to me because I can look at different places in my life and think, that's not my limit. And I don't know why I accepted that as a limit.
And that it's okay that it's somebody else's. Right. But there's this like immediate, so it's interesting because I think you're getting at like both sides of the shame, like the shame of wanting more and like breaking out of something and knowing you can have an impact, but then the shame of like the fear of not making the impact and going out and failing. And so there's kind of this both sides of like, you shouldn't break out of it, but if you do, you better not fail. And so you're kind of like, there's a trap, something. There's some sort of a box that happens that you're stuck inside of with that. And it's interesting. And a lot of the times I think about this notion of, as business owners, we both see this because our job, maybe in different ways and different, I guess, avenues, we're trying to give people the space to explore who they are and the impact they want to have and how they want to show up and write their own stories. And that's pretty much just being a human willing to actually see another human and use our different skills that we've acquired, we've developed to apply to that.
Yeah.
You aren't suddenly good at that at 50 or 60 or 80 and, or not good at that at 10 or 20. It has to do with how all those things come together. But there's this idea of I'm not far enough along yet to lead somebody else through this process. And if I am leading them, then I can't be struggling or failing or flailing, or I have to make it. And I don't know if that's sitting with you, but I think a lot about like that push to prove, that push to not fall. How does that sit with you as I'm saying that?
Yeah, totally. And this has been coming up a lot lately. And I realized like a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, people only show you the shiny bits.
Right.
Don't talk about the hard, challenging things that they went through in their business to grow to be where they are.
Right.
And we all have our own individual journeys, and there is no right or wrong way to do it. Mm-hmm. But we get so caught up in sort of keeping up with the people that we want to prove that we have it all together. But when it comes down to it, the vulnerability and being able to recognize that, like, yeah, sometimes shit is hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't go the way we think it's going to go, but we keep going. Right. And we keep asking for help, and we keep moving toward what we know is right and feels aligned. That's when we know that we're on the right path. Mm-hmm. But I think we get so caught up in I have to, be at a certain level at this point in my business. Right. No, I mean, there are people that have been in business for a super long time, and then they lose it all because they were highly leveraged in one area, and then all that work went away. So it's interesting because I think my family tells me a lot. They're like, we're so proud of you for taking this risk and like doing this thing. I could never do that. And they keep saying, I could never do that. It seems too scary. I could never do that. And there are times that I'm like, yeah, this is really fucking hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not scared. Like, you seem to have this like thing that I don't have the exact same fears as you. I just jumped in the pool and you're still sitting on the side looking at it.
Yeah. Because I don't think if I were at the end of my life looking back, if I had never taken a chance to step out of the comfort zone I was in to do something that I felt called to do, I would have regretted it. Yeah. 100%. Even if this goes up in flames and doesn't work anymore after a bit, I will still be proud that I took this step.
Yeah. Well, and I think about this a lot too. So I'm from a lot of small towns because I moved a lot before I moved in with my cousin, but like from Brown Deer, Wisconsin. I know you're from a smaller town. Like, we have partners from small towns. And so and all four of us have sort of left the hometown space. And I think there is a certain degree, and this isn't just a small town mentality. There's a certain mentality within family systems, within different cultures, of kind of being around and staying and existing within the normal that other people exist in. And so there is this kind of othering that happens. There is this breaking away. And I think the really scary part, at least for me, was because I moved around a lot as a kid. When I got to Brown Deer and I was, in a group of friends that I had from middle school through high school, I was dating somebody all through high school and college. Like, everybody was going to be all their parents went to school together. They were all still friends. They were all going to stay in Milwaukee and I think they still all are. There was a certain degree of comfort there for me, because what I needed in that moment, or what I came to value, was stability and predictability, because so much of my life, I didn't have that. And then it got to a point where it didn't fit for me anymore, because I think it was a trauma response for me, but my authentic self, I wasn't meant to do that. I wasn't meant to be there. And the really hard part was, I knew the instant I made a choice that didn't line up with the expectations of that groupthink mentality, I was going to lose everyone. And I did. I lost all of my friends. I lost all of their family that, had become my family. I didn't have that anymore. And then it sort of went to this, you start to realize that you have to, and this sounds like a bumper sticker, but like you have to choose yourself in those moments, because what would have happened is I would have suffocated.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that's really tricky when I look back on it is, and I remember being on the flip side, I had a girlfriend that when we graduated high school, she was like, I'm leaving and I'm not coming back. And she just like stopped being our friend as soon as she went to college. And I remember at first I was like, what the fuck? Like that's really, I can't believe you do that. But looking back on it, I think it was her only way, because I think if she didn't have a clean break, she would have been pulled in. She would have felt stuck. She couldn't go do it. And I now have so much kindness I wish I could have given to her then. But I think that's a big thing. And I'm wondering how that sits with you as you think about that too, of like, there is this degree of just, you have to be willing to break away from the norms that exist to be able to go for what you want. And they're going to see it as a threat, because it is a threat to their norm and existence.
Yeah.
We're not saying the way that someone else is living is bad. If you still live in Brown Deer, Wisconsin, more fucking power to you if it's where you want to be and you feel good about your life. If you don't want to go start a business, if you don't want to be, I had a friend who had kids, was like, I had all these goals. I want to be, running this business and doing these things, and then had kids and was like, I don't think I want to do that anymore. I think I can't be that person doing that because I just want to be with my kids. And it was like, that was somehow a step down. So there's this notion of like, if you're breaking away, you must be judging the quote unquote lowly people who didn't do it. Or if you choose to do that, there's a problem. And so I know I'm saying a lot, but I'm curious how that sits with you, this notion of how the systems keep us stuck. And it's really all rooted in fear. Everybody's fears of not having a place and not belonging. And we don't have a system and a culture that exists that allows everybody to be in different spaces and places and still connect as humans. And that, I think, is really a big motivator.
Yeah, totally. I thought about that a lot when I left Wisconsin, and how I wondered how many of these people that I spent nearly every day with that I would still be in contact with after I moved. And there are not a lot of them. And that was really hard for me, because it felt like I poured in so much of myself into all of these relationships, and then to not have that come back when I moved away from everyone I knew to start a life here. It was really, really hard. I cried a lot the first year that we were here, because I felt guilty for taking the girls away from their grandparents and everybody that we had in our, family circle. I felt guilty for wanting to step out of that bubble. And it made me realize too that I don't know if this is true everywhere, but it felt true for Wisconsin that you don't leave.
Right. 100%. Yeah.
Your family lives within 20 minutes or maybe an hour from where you are. You stay in that pocket where where everybody is. You have family dinners together. You spend all this time together. And if you leave, then, well, we don't have as much time for you then. And I didn't really feel that with my family, but my aunt had actually sort of warned us, because she's been in California for 20 something years now. And she's like, we don't get invited to the things anymore. And we don't have the phone calls that are regularly happening. And when she moved out here, though, we weren't as interconnected as we are now, where we can FaceTime people or whatever. So I wasn't as worried about that, but I did notice that it was really hard for the first Christmas away, the first Thanksgiving away, the first, those firsts, but then it got easier.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel the obligation to be at and to show up the way that I would have in the past. And now I look at pictures and things that are happening in the places I would have spent time. And I'm like, thank God that's not my life anymore.
I mean, because you're like, I had that when we went back to Wisconsin last year. And I was like, first off, I could buy 6 houses for the one house that we just fucking bought out here. So there's the allure of being back in some of those places, and things would be easy because both of us had communities there that we now know. We have the data. They weren't founded on the connection that you and I seek. They might have been founded on the types of connection that those people wanted, needed, or were looking for. But we're looking for something different. And again, coming back to that word more, it feels like it's more for us.
Yeah.
And that's really, really hard. But I remember going back there and being like, oh my gosh, I couldn't do this. I can't be that. But we have, I suppose, the beauty of the hindsight of it now, of knowing what it's like to leave and coming through a bit of the painful parts.
Yeah.
As you were talking, I wrote down really what I think kind of summarizes what you said. There is the grief that comes from change.
Yeah.
But the power we get in choice. And so there isn't, I mean, I think I talk about the word predictable shittiness all the time. It's this notion of just circling the drain of comfort. They all go, like when we were getting married and Jordan's mom wanted to invite, everybody that may or may not have some sort of blood connection to them. And she talks about this now, like what she learned in this process. Cause my family didn't stay. I think that, again, I had a lot of different experiences and trauma with my mom, but like my cousins, my aunts and uncles, everybody went to some sort of higher education. They all moved away somewhere. So that wasn't a norm for me. Nobody liked each other, really. Nobody was around. And so I wasn't going to invite anybody from my family, but it was like, look, my joke I made was if they can't pick me out of a lineup or pronounce my name correctly, they shouldn't be invited to my wedding.
Yeah.
But there's this sense of obligation in that everybody gets invited to everything. Everybody keeps going. And everybody's sending a gift. I don't need your money. I don't even know you. I don't want to pay to take you to lunch, which is basically what an invite to a wedding is.
Yeah.
So let's just all keep our money and like call it a wash. But we went through that process of realizing like, no. And there were moments where Jordan and his mom would have like some tension around that. And they have such a beautiful relationship that they could push through that, which is a gift because not everybody has that. And so there is this, like, even that would have been enough to disconnect the two of them for some people. But it was that breaking apart. And she looks at it now and she's like, oh yeah. Like, that's just what we do. Like now she's out here with us at times, like getting an invitation to something. And it's like, we're just getting invited so they get the gift. Like, this is what obligation patterns look like. This is what it looks like for people to be pissed at us because we're not spending $1,000 a person to fly home for someone's baby shower that I don't care about. I hope the baby and the family are healthy. I wish that on everybody, but I could give 2 fucks about their baby shower and anything else going on in their life.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Mm-hmm. So I think for you, it's that because you're also so attuned to people and you want them to feel seen and you want them to feel heard and connected. It has to feel hard to release that tension of not carrying that weight for them. So it's finding the way of holding it and knowing it, but not being tethered to it or tied down by it.
Yeah. And I like what you just said really resonated because I think I show up in this way for other people because I needed somebody to show up for me in that way when I was growing up. And I now as a mom, I'm recognizing where that could happen again, like that cycle could happen again. And I do not want my girls to ever feel like they're not heard or seen or cared about. And it wasn't done intentionally.
Right.
It was very much like in comments like, oh, you just wake up talking, like you're talking all the time. And I was like, I just want you to hear me. I just want you to hear what I have to say.
Oh, it's like makes me laugh, but it also like I feel the ache for you because it's especially for you because you just want to connect.
Yeah.
And you just weren't seen. And again, we're not saying that like your parents, your caregivers, your friends, like we're not saying they're shitty people. Everyone's doing the best they can with the skills and tools they have, but it was an empathy miss. It was a connection gap. It was a bid for love that wasn't responded to. And that loneliness breeds shame. So then you feel like there's something less about you, which then makes that drive for something more feel like it exists with such a tension cord inside of it.
And then it feels like it's never enough. Like it's never enough. And that's something I'm noticing.
Interesting.
In the work that I'm doing now for myself is I don't give myself a break. It's never enough. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. And then you burn out really hard.
Yeah.
And you feel really exhausted because you don't want to ask for help, because before you had to just figure it out. Like you just figure it out and you get it done because that's what we have to do. And I don't accept that anymore. We're co-creating this successful life together. So let's help each other so that it's not so fucking hard and so lonely. Like I'm having conversations with my sister now, who's a new mom, and she's like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I'm like, none of us know. We're just doing the best we can.
Yep.
We're healing from what we didn't realize was happening to us, while also trying not to perpetuate generational trauma at the same time. So we're doing two jobs in one. Yep.
Well, and I think I did a book club series with 4 of Thich Nhat Hanh's books. And there was one about, I think it was How to Love or How to Connect. It was one of those two. But in there, he talks about how this notion of like healing and sometimes anger that happens towards our parents or caregivers. And basically the visual he creates is that we're meant to take the baton further than our parents did. They can only go so far. And if you look back at their stories and their parents, they hopefully were able to take the baton a bit farther than their parents. That is what it means to evolve and to grow. That is literally how evolution happens, is like the movement through things in different ways. And so the tricky part is to not assume that our job is to make it to the end of the race, to empower your girls, not to think it's their job to make it to the end of the race, while healing from the stories and the internalized messages that you had, which is that the only way you will be seen and worthy is if you get your ass to the end of the race before everybody else and with the best, the biggest flourish, the best whatever. And so but I think, at least for me, when I think about now, am I running my race? Am I running my leg? Or am I jumping in someone else's lane? It helps, because I am sure I've joked. I mean, I think we've even joked about this. And I said, as Everly gets older, I guarantee you she's not going to want to do certain things that she would like, quote unquote, get in trouble. She's going to be like, Mom, if we have to fucking talk about emotions one more time, like right now she's like into it. And sometimes she calls me on it, which is great. But like, I hope she takes the next piece. Like, I know I'm going to screw up. There are things I know I'm overcompensating for. I'm sure there are things you're overcompensating for, especially in that chase for wanting them to have more based on the story we lived in, because that's not their experience. Your girls know nothing about what it's like to wake up talking and feel like nobody's going to listen to them. Maybe each other, because they sometimes don't listen to each other. But like, so sometimes I think it's even the gift of freeing yourself from having to correct your story that you've projected onto them, that you're somehow going to leave them feeling the way that you did, and to give yourself permission to say, the internal work that I'm doing did create a sense of more that isn't going to translate to emptiness for them. And so how do I release myself from that? So when they are talking metaphorically and I'm not listening, I'm open to that because I'm not so busy trying to correct this one over here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the things I was just thinking about is that I have been on this performance track for as long as I can remember. As the oldest daughter, I just am the perfectionist, wanting to like get the best grades and show up and be liked by everyone and make everybody feel comfortable. And I felt a sense of relief when I moved here because I wasn't on all the time. I didn't have to perform all the time. I could become this version of myself that I've been slowly uncovering. And one of the things that you and I had talked about in one of our sessions together was like, every once in a while, the light in the room goes on and you see little glimpses of it. And then sometimes the light flicks on and you're standing in the room and you're looking around. And I felt like this was an opportunity for me to really explore what that room had to offer and do it in a way. There are things that I've done since moving here that my parents were like, I don't know if I can do that. And I'm like, well, it doesn't affect you, so it's fine. And in the last week or so, I've been realizing that I have still been trying to put on this show and like trying to prove the people that I literally haven't talked to in 2 years wrong. Like that, yes, I can be successful in a brand new place. Who fucking cares what they have to say? They haven't reached out to me one time. Like it literally doesn't matter. But I felt this sense of having to prove myself, and I'm proving to myself every single day that I am healthier, I'm happier, I am stronger and more resilient than I could have ever been.
Yeah. And also makes me think about, because I still struggle with that in some ways too, of, at least for me, one of the things I hold is, do I need to turn to forgiveness? Like, am I angry at them? Am I using my anger or my sadness or my loneliness from that relationship as fuel to be angry at me or to push myself? And again, sort of the undercurrent of shame. And so, I wonder even for you, of what would it be like to forgive them for letting you down and for making you feel so alone? And would that help you to not be so tethered to them as writers in your story right now?
Yeah.
I know. As soon as you said, I was like, this is one of those moments where, for people listening, the art of just like taking a pause break. Because as soon as you were like, I was like, my brain went, so there's like, I think some parallel processing for myself in that too. So just say with that one, because it's, you deserve to not constantly be trying to write the next chapter and being pulled back to that one, and to see that Emily, because that Emily needed their approval, because you were still existing in a place where you didn't know you were dependent on it, because that's how systems of, abuse and shame and all this other jargon work together. But now that this Emily doesn't need it. This Emily is able to say, I still want it sometimes. I still long for it sometimes. To this fucking day, I still wish some of my friends from high school and I could just talk. I still wish one of them would just like find something out about me and be like, how are you? We don't even need to talk about the past, but like, there's times it's like, I want it, because in my head, it feels like then I could release the thoughts that I am somehow the problem.
Yeah.
But that storyline still exists in saying that what they do or don't do hinders on you being worthy and valuable. And it doesn't. And they don't need to write this story anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it is it feels, you want that closure. Like your ego wants that closure. Yeah. That like, okay, I wasn't the problem. Like this was totally done too. And in your logic brain, you're like, okay, I know this is not about them.
Right.
This is 100% about me.
Right.
And we can't control what other people do, but it's feeling that sense of freedom when you let that piece go. And I think that's what I've been working on for the last couple of years, is just like getting closer to that feeling of freedom of choice and freedom of time and freedom of energy, that I can use what I was pouring into basically colanders at times to then pour back into my own cup and redistribute it, because I am worth that time and that energy and that love too. And I feel like for a lot of the people that I've talked to, that they always felt like they had to earn it, especially if they were female. Like they had to do all the things for everybody else first, and then they could take a break. And I luckily have a partner that is like, no, you're a people too. Go take a bath. Like, go for a run, spend some time by yourself. But that was never modeled to me. And so recognizing how toxic that was to see, and then seeing how it's manifesting in my life now, and being able to look at it and be like, that is not going to work long term.
Or it will, and I will not be the person I'm fighting to be. And you'll get lost in that same place that you've seen so many other people get stuck. And there was, when I was reading, I think we might have talked about this one night, but when I was reading Atlas of the Heart, one of the words that stood out most to me was resentment. And it was, the definition of it is, I'm not like resentful that they're not helping me do X, Y, and Z. You know, when Jordan has had a stretch of shifts and he's not the one that's been making dinner or doing whatever, and because he's been sleeping like 5 hours a day, trying to sleep in broad daylight and then working overnight in the emergency department. And like, I don't resent him for not getting up to make breakfast. I don't resent him for taking an afternoon to like go play video games, to just like chill out, or to like sit and watch the Bucks game. Well, I'm like, but I got to clean, and we got to pack, and we got to do this, and I got to do this thing. Resentment is, I wish I could give myself that. I wish I could give myself that grace. And I think you're right. Like, both of us identifying as female, being socialized female. And now we both have daughters that we're thinking about. It's, again, being able to say, this system is shame-based. This system, that is that differentiation point between wanting more and knowing when it's enough. And today you can say it's been enough, and I'm just going to, take the bath, read the book, do the silly thing with my kids. And, you specifically just taking the pressure off of, as a former teacher, and being really, we were joking about this the other day of like, your summer camp system for your kids is like, you could package it and sell that, like just how you are going to manage summer with your kid, because you're a teacher, so you can do this in different ways, but it's saying, gosh, today I can just turn that off and I'm just going to let it be whatever it is. And so I don't know, I think I've felt so much of that resentment, and Jordan will do the same thing. Like, go take a break. Like, you won't even use the time if you get it. Like, I want you to take more time for yourself, but you're just going to go work or do something else. Like, you don't know how to do this. And it is learning how to release those feelings of resentment that other people are doing it, and I wish I could, and saying, specifically like what he said to you, you're a people too. And when I'm tapping in to try to give people their full stories, when you are the one helping them to uncover their full selves, that is always a part of the conversation. And so if we are going to be the person that is leading, walking next to, and modeling, we have to learn that that's a part of the puzzle. And those are the things that we can take the baton one more rung down the road for our daughters, so that they can see, oh no, that was really, really hard for her, but she knew that it was a problem and she worked on it. And I know now it's a problem, and I'm going to learn how to keep doing it to the next level. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I want, is to model more balance. More like a better integration of life and work, and that it doesn't have to look one way. It can look lots of different ways, but taking care of yourself is a top priority, because you can't pour into other people if you don't have enough to give, self.
And I think this just sort of beautifully ties all this together, because when we thought about the word more and what that means, and again, sort of thinking about everybody else's limits, it's the idea of more is saying, my cup takes a different amount, or what fills my cup looks different. And more for you isn't, I don't want to be like anybody, back at home, or I think I'm better. More for you is saying how I need to connect in this world and what it looks like to feel balanced in myself and centered with other people is different from what I saw. And the more is the permission to expand beyond that. And then to hopefully hold the space when your girls want more, to know that that is something that doesn't say anything about you, that is literally them taking the baton to the next spot.
Yeah.
Okay. So all of this to say, I mentioned everybody in the beginning, this is literally what Emily does for people in her business. She is so incredible at it. She just has a way of meeting people and telling you, not even telling you, because it's like you're aware of what it is, but she just makes your gifts feel special. Like it's the feeling. I mean, I know the way I've made my 3-year-old feel, like when I say something to her and she just like lights up, because I've made her feel like setting her dish next to the sink is like gold medal level performance. Like she just feels amazing, or she made a toucan at preschool. Do you see all the colors? And I know what like all these things, and you light them up. That is literally the feeling you give people, is that feeling I see in my 3-year-old's face. That is how I relate to it. And so for anybody listening to this, that's like, oh my gosh, not only does this person just sound like just a good human, but I want to learn more about what she does. I want to connect with her. I want to maybe take myself out of that space. How do they connect with you? Where do you want them to start?
LinkedIn would be the best place to start. I'm pretty active on there. I love connecting with people and just hearing their story and seeing if there are people in my network I can connect them with, or if I can help them shine a little brighter in this world and really create the impact that they want to have. LinkedIn would be the best place to start.
And I will say, because I'm on LinkedIn and I sort of reluctantly engage with it, that you really genuinely mean it when you say you just like to connect with people. And it's the reason I think LinkedIn, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it is really this wanting to connect and network with people and really help them in their professional, but also their personal lives, but bringing that integration of their full self. And that's really not what a lot of those other social platforms are for. So you're really about that. She is not a pitcher. She knows how to sell. She can teach you how to do that and how to kind of hold yourself in a position to put yourself out there, but that's just not who she is. Like I'm the person that gets an invite to something and I will be like, okay, well, what, like, that's a lot of time. What is this? Like, what's the ask? What's going to come out of it? How does this fit for me? Emily is the type of person that you like want to ask her to go get coffee. And she's like, oh my gosh, absolutely. I would love to connect with you, and just goes into it with such curiosity. So if you are looking to connect with somebody like that, please reach out to her on LinkedIn. I'll also have her website down in the show notes. She's just a good person, just somebody that you want in your camp of people to know, even if she's at a distance, she literally wants the whole world to succeed. She wants everybody to get there more, whatever that is. Let's end the same way we started. What's one word to describe how you're feeling right now?
Heard.
I love that. I don't know what you looked like as a little kid. I'm sure you have pictures, but I had this like almost you going to that you, to past you, and just like putting your arm around her. Mm-hmm. Because you showed up to this conversation today and allowed yourself to be heard. And so I'm so grateful. I think that might be my word. Like multiple times in our conversation, I felt like the shift of like pain in a good way, like emotional, mental pain, and just this like, oh yeah, that sucked. Or like, I'm still holding that. And that is really hard. And I just feel really grateful that you came in willing to explore this, because I feel like I, regardless of what anybody else gets from this conversation, like I feel like these little shifts are the micro that really lead to the macro for me being the best version of myself. So I just feel grateful to have you and to have created the space for that.
Me too. Thank you.
Of course. Well, everyone, this was just another amazing, juicy, powerful, wonderful, empowering, all the words episode. Please be sure to check out the show notes. Connect with Emily. If you love what you're hearing, let me know. If you have things you want to learn more about, please let me know. As always, please be kind to yourself and remember, you have the right to author your own story. So let's go get that pen back. I'll see you next episode.